Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. How can JJ Redick build a long career with the Lakers at a time where no one, even coaches that win, seem to last? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter where you get your podcasts. This one's always going to be free. It's never going to be behind a paywall, not on Spotify, not on Apple, where so many of our listeners get their podcasts, and certainly not on YouTube, where over 35,000 subscribers are all hanging out and wondering whether or not JJ Redick is going to be able to build himself a long career in Los Angeles. Because right now, Andy, it is a cold time for NBA coaches. It doesn't matter if you win or not. It doesn't matter if you're an hour and a half before you start the playoffs, like Mike Malone in Denver. It doesn't matter if you just made the Eastern Conference Finals, like Tom Thibodeau in New York. Or if you just signed a contract for $11 billion, like Mike Budenholzer, you're getting canned. Like, there is no patience around this league right now.
Yeah, Tom Thibodeau, it was, I think, pretty surprising even in this climate that Tom Thibodeau would end up getting fired by the Knicks. He still has, you were talking about, money left on the contract. I believe he has something like $30 million left on his deal, which, as I've said many times, I aspire to reach a place where I'm getting paid tens of millions of dollars to quite literally do anything else other than show up to the work of the people cutting me that check.
Like, it really is the American dream.
Oh, that is what we should all aspire to. But, the situation with Thibs, obviously, Thibs has been a polarizing coach in terms of, certain degree of stubbornness, certain degree of lacking modern principles of the game, the proclivity for going with very short rotations, not just in the playoffs, but over the course of the regular season, the grating, barking voice that I think sometimes people, if nothing else, imagine would wear on other players. And, as these postmortems are coming out, you're hearing reports of some clashing, might be overstating it, but some disagreements between him and Karl Anthony Towns, between him and Mikal Bridges, but none. And Thibs has never been seen, I think, as a perfect coach. But at the same time, this was the first conference finals that the Knicks have been to since 2000. And you could, I think, I was about to say you could argue, but I don't know who would debate it. This is the most sustained progress the Knicks have made in the 21st century as a highly dysfunctional laughingstock franchise. So it is jarring to see Thibs fired, on the eve of, being at worst the fourth best team in the NBA.
Right. I mean, like within, what was it, like a day? Like,
right. That said, though, this is coming at a time where Mike Budenholzer, again, not everybody's favorite coach, has been polarizing, was likely on the verge of getting canned before he won a title with the Bucks, but he did win a title with the Bucks, which for them was the first time in 50 years. And he got fired on the heels of a season where he went 58-24. Mike Malone just 2 years ago brought the Denver Nuggets their only championship in franchise history. Granted, he got a 10-year run, but still, he gets canned right before the playoffs begin. Taylor Jenkins gets canned right before.
I forgot about Taylor Jenkins. You're right.
Oh, I'm not even done yet. Canned right before the playoffs begin, and one of the best runs Memphis has had. Mike Brown fired on the heels of bringing the Kings back to relevance after even soft relevance. They have not had this in a long time. Again, Mike Brown, not a perfect coach. He's been let go by many organizations. But again, the Kings have not been this good in a long time. And we're going to talk specifically about JJ Redick and all of this, but it's worth noting he is employed by an organization that fired Frank Vogel, one season, 2 seasons removed from a championship. And, Darvin Ham, while his second season with the Lakers had a lot of issues, including losing a locker room in ways that I'm not sure could have been overcome. Both of us were skeptical about it. It doesn't change the fact that he had 2 seasons with the Lakers, both of which he made the playoffs, one of which he made the Western Conference Finals.
So
tough world, man.
It is. So with Greg Popovich, officially stepping down in San Antonio, obviously, as the year started, he was still, even though he wasn't on the sidelines, the longest tenured coach. You can name the 2 longest tenured coaches in the NBA. That part's not hard. You want to do it? Like,
Kerr
they
and
are.
Spoelstra.
Kerr and Spoelstra. Other way around. Spoelstra then Kerr. In 2000. Doesn't matter. But it's, but Spoelstra was hired in 2008 and Kerr was hired in 2014. Do you know who the 3rd longest tenured coach currently in the NBA is?
Either Ty Lue or Rick Carlisle, I'm guessing.
It is Ty Lue is 4th. 3rd, beating him by about a month, is Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan was hired in September of 2020.
He's been with the Bulls that long?
He's been with the Bulls that long. But the point is, the 3rd most tenured coach in the NBA was hired in 2020. September of 2020. Ty Lue was hired in October of 2020.
I mean, it just dawned on me that if the Lakers had not fired Frank Vogel, he'd be like the 3rd. He'd be the 3rd longest coach in the league.
I'm looking it up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and now 13 once New York hires a coach. 13 organizations have hired their coach since the start of 2024. And so, and I know, I mean, it's a hard business, but I mean, my word. So all but 3 since 2020. And I just noted since 2024. And the question that really got me thinking is, Mike Malone, he lasted longer in Denver than I remembered. It was he was 10 years. And that is hard to do, even in good times in the NBA. 10 years, it's a long time. And to hear that same voice and stuff like that, but you start thinking about what went wrong, and then you start thinking about Thibs and what went wrong. And it got me thinking, the Lakers, when they hired JJ Redick, have talked about him as their Pat Riley, as with all of these things, as a guy who is going to be with us for a long time, that we want to build a program with. They talk about him, quite frankly. I mean, I think most teams think about their coach as somebody they think will be there for a long time, but like you would talk about somebody you want to become Eric Spoelstra or Steve Kerr or a mainstay in the location where they are. And it got me. So how does he do that? What qualities are most likely to undermine his ability to become that coach? And I'm not talking about, it turns out he's just not very good at it. Like Luke Walton, I think to some degree, it just turned out like he wasn't as good at it as it seemed like he should be. He wasn't. I don't think he was as bad at it, but he was more ordinary, I think, than people.
I mean, the Lakers did, to be fair to Luke, start actually making more progress in the kids era than I think people actually remember. I'm just stating, his first year coaching the kids, the team jumped by 10 wins, which is not about 10 wins, which is not insignificant. And then the following year jumped by another 10 wins, which again, not insignificant as a jump. I'm not making the case that the Lakers, still should have Luke Walton employed, because there were also areas in which you saw he, particularly offensively, he was not a particularly creative or gifted coach. I'm not sure he was the right coach for the moment that they were entering once LeBron ended up joining the team. But you look at Frank Vogel, for example, and, Vogel, we've said this, all these coaches, there are very few, you're going to name that are perfect, but Vogel was clearly never their first choice to begin with. He was, I think, their fourth at best.
At least.
Right. And, I think some of the issues Vogel had down the stretch of his last season with the franchise gave Rob Pelinka the sort of permission structure and the opening to find someone that he felt like was more of his guy to begin with. That ended up being Darvin Ham. But this whole situation with Thibs and the general instability there seems to be with coaches, even coaches that are enjoying success, obviously made us think about JJ. Not that either one of us thinks JJ is on the verge of losing his job.
God, no. But
he's working for an organization that has not been shy about letting go of their coaches at the drop of a hat, seemingly more before they look inward at their own front office and, maybe the problem.
So after the break, let's answer this question. Let's stipulate for the sake of the conversation that JJ's got the chops as a coach, the X's and O's, he'll grow into it. The adjustments that he might not have made this year, he'll learn over time, that he's got the basic chops. What are the qualities that would prevent him? What does he need to change or do better at to allow him to have a Mike Malone 10-year run in LA? Because that, in this day and age, would be the exception to the rules. We'll get to it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swings. The finals are approaching, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never been a better chance to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. You can track players who consistently show up in the biggest moments, but also when they put on those superhero capes and how those trends can help inform your next bet. Maybe you take that knowledge and you roll it into a same game parlay, press things up, keep it interesting, keep it exciting. And if you're new to FanDuel, this is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
I think for me, when I think of JJ, the parts like we talked about before the season started, like regulating the blood pressure aspects of being a head coach, like this basketball sicko stuff, you lock yourself in. It sounds great, but if you want to be somebody who lasts a long time, you need to learn how to regulate your intake of the job and how you separate it. And, so that is an aspect of it that I think comes internally that could keep him from doing, the work as well. When you're gripping that tight, you don't see stuff around. You tend to only be able to see what's right in front of you. And to me, that's a place to start, as a place where if JJ wants to have a really long career in one place, that's an area of improvement. There are others that I can think of, but I wanted to start with that one.
It's funny that you bring up the notion of clinging too tightly, and I'll swing it back to JJ in just a second. But it reminded me of how the Suns, now on the heels of they've hired a coach, Jordan Ott, former assistant coach with the Lakers for a couple seasons, part of, I believe, the Darvin Ham regime. But this hiring came on the heels of an internal letter from Matt Ishbia, the lunatic owner of the Phoenix Suns. And part of the letter,
you can't believe how cheaply Matt Ishbia is giving away those stereos, Andy. He's crazy.
I have said it many times talking about Matt Ishbia. That dude is an effing loon. But anyway, part of the email is, quote, "Let me start with the most important part. the Phoenix Suns will do things very differently than other NBA franchises. I will be extremely active in the decisions and management of this organization on and off the floor. While I won't be reviewing film, designing offenses, or running the draft room, quite the concession, Maddie, I will be deeply involved in ensuring that basketball operations, like every other area of our organization, is performing at the highest level. I'm aware that this approach is different than most NBA franchises. I'm not the conventional NBA owner, no bleep. And I don't want to be. I've tried running the typical NBA playbook, hiring the experts, signing the checks, and getting out of the way. And none of us were happy with the outcome. Making the playoffs 2 out of 3 years and owning one playoff series is not good enough for this franchise and this community. JJ Redick is sitting on the sidelines of a game smoking a blunt compared to the grip that Matt Ishbia seemed like before he was exercising. Like,
I was about to say,
this was Matt
apparently
Ishbia,
what we've been witnessing was a hands-off Matt Ishbia.
like Matt Ishbia hiring a new like, not an exaggeration, hiring a new coach every effing season you've owned this team. That's the hands-off version of Matt Ishbia.
Well, but this is relevant to one way. We'll get some more reasons, more things that fits. He's probably a good business person. I don't know how he made his money. Hedge fund guy, I'm not sure, but he was clearly good at that. But that does not mean you're a good NBA owner.
No.
This though, like if you're looking for reasons that JJ could have a longer career, it's in LA.
Not
it's
being
the
hired
opposite.
by the Suns.
Well, it's all of this. I mean, like say what you will about the Lakers. This is not how they're run. There are times when I wish Jeannie would be more forceful in what she does, that she exert a little bit more control, quality control, hold people like, specifically Rob Pelinka. If you're going to have that small a circle, those people have to be held to an impeccably high standard. And, I don't know. I think Rob rightly feels quite comfortable in his job and maybe shouldn't.
Extension.
Right. And shouldn't necessarily all the time. But if you got to choose between the Jeannie Buss way of doing it and the Matt Ishbia way of doing it, give me Jeannie Buss every day, and Sundays. It's like, and then the next level of that is if you're going to have a long tenure, you need to be able to have a good relationship with basketball operations. And it's both the security of Rob Pelinka, I think certainly helps JJ Redick, could help JJ Redick in certain ways, especially since JJ speaks Rob. They have what seem to be very similar viewpoints on management. I'm not going to say basketball because I've not sat in on conversations between them, but in terms of their perception of how modern leaders work, how modern organizations operate. Like, they came from the same consulting firm. And so that I think helps JJ if you're looking for a way that he's going to have the kind of runway that he needs to develop into a really good coach. It's a good setup for him, if nothing else.
Well, he theoretically has the runway. I mean, Rob described him and Darvin as very much on the same page and very much aligned in partnerships and yada yada until they weren't. So, it's been 1 year.
But Darvin didn't speak the same way and have the same approach as JJ does in terms of bridging those. So I think some of those.
I'm going to be honest. Gaps. I think that's a bunch of superficial BS that won't matter one way or the other.
Oh, I think superficial BS matters a lot more than you might think.
No. I think Rob enjoys some of that stuff. I'm just saying I don't think that's necessary. I think that's just how both of them speak, and it's honestly how I think most people in the world of leadership now speak. They're all just doing corporate tech bro speak. That's how they.
Oh no, I agree with you, but I don't think it means it gives JJ a hammerlock on the job forever because he speaks and speaks Rob's language. But I do think it adds to the level of comfort and potential synergy, which at the least buys him time in rocky situations.
Maybe I need to see it to believe it. We're 1 year in.
More on give me some of your thoughts on what aspects of JJ's after a year of it where you feel like this needs to change if he wants to have 10 years?
We'll get into that coming up next.
Do want to remind people that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins.
Real quick before we get to JJ, I don't know if you saw, but Adam Silver on one of the Fox Sports shows confirmed that the next All-Star game is going to be USA versus the world. Which a lot of people have been calling for, basically the American-born NBA players versus the foreign-born NBA players during the All-Star game. He did add, though, quote, "I'm not exactly sure what the format will be yet. I paid a lot of attention to what the NHL did, which was a huge success. Commish, I'd like to offer you my suggestion. The format is the American-born basketball players play a game of basketball against the foreign-born NBA basketball players. That's it. Don't overthink it. Don't try to add bells and whistles. Don't try to add some new twist. Just have them play basketball, then log off, pay no attention to what anybody inevitably bitches about that they don't like, and then keep the same format for multiple years so it actually looks like you're happy with the product, and therefore that confidence that you project in the product might start getting people to complain about it less. But the one thing that gets people to complain about it all the time is when you keep switching up the format every effing year, which just confirms the idea that it's terrible. Just have them play basketball. Don't overthink this."
And you're going to need to work through that because you've trained us all to do this. You're going to need to work through that first couple seasons where people keep complaining, because that's what we do. Yes, I agree with you.
What is there to figure out? Play basketball. Like, Jesus.
There's little stuff. There's like, if you have to come up with a certain amount of international players, a certain amount of American players, like how do you make sure there's equity in who's named an All-Star and who's not? Like, none of this is stuff that I'm terribly concerned about as like a person who counts All-Stars, but like All-Star games, as far as I understand, like count, like they're part of these, of the equations and things that, I think they're still part of the equation of what impacts like potential contracts. But if nothing else, they're part of how we view people from a legacy standpoint. X amount of All-Star teams. Mike Conley never made an All-Star team until he did. But that's what we look at guys. So that part is at least a conversation, but the rest of it, you are spot on. If it sucks, pretend it was good and do the same thing next year.
Yeah, I mean, you know what the NFL isn't worried about? The fact that they're playing flag football during their Pro Bowl, because what they are telling us it's great. They don't.
And the flag football thing did improve. Like the NFL, the one game that the NFL didn't was struggling with was the Pro Bowl.
Right.
And so they were like, we're just going to make it a flag football game. We're not going to pretend anymore. And I don't even think they watch it. I think they invite those people out there to Hawaii. And then like everyone from the league leaves and just was like, if there's no game, someone will tell me. Like, I'm not sure they're even there at that point.
Just have them play basketball and get out of the way. As far as JJ though, I thought JJ did on balance a very good job during the regular season. He had to navigate essentially 3 different rosters over the course of the season. The one that began this season, the one that was in between D'Lo getting traded, DFS coming on board, but before AD and Max were sent out, and then the Luka era, which included a lot of absences between Luka, LeBron, Rui, Jackson Hayes, occasionally Austin, like Gabe. There was a lot of guys in and out of the lineup. And I thought JJ managed to do a pretty good job juggling a lot of that. I think he did a very good job getting a lot of buy-in for a lot of the principles that he wanted to do and the general accountability and attention to details. During the playoffs, though, a lot of what JJ did well, I thought, devolved. And that's a learning lesson for any rookie coach. The playoffs are different. Chris Finch is a very good coach. So it's not shocking that he could outcoach JJ, even if you think he had more to work with. That said, JJ, I think, if he wants to make sure that he gives himself as long a runway as possible through his coaching, you have to accept that you can't control everything. And I think JJ was trying way too hard to control all of the uncontrollables. And by doing that, I think he actually limited the amount of buttons that he could actually push, because he decided very quickly, very loudly, and very transparently, half these buttons, I don't even want to push them. I'm not even going to try to push them. And it's like, you can't win a playoff series basically pushing one button. You can't do it.
I would say I agree with you. And I think because I defended the no subs thing probably more than some other people did. And I certainly understood it, if nothing else. They were close to getting away with that. They were, I understood even, I don't even think his logic behind getting guys off their feet and resting as much as possible before game one was dumb. I think most people were like, they're going to get tons of, and they just were missing something. And the players, JJ took a lot of responsibility for that. But, obviously that's a lot of that's on the players too.
Sure.
But you learn, and my last thing I think where JJ needs to get better at some of the sort of management stuff in terms of how he talks to us, how he maybe talks about players. Like there's that sense of being offended when someone questions what you're trying to do and why. I think there needs to be a little bit more of a step back. I don't want to say humility, because I'm not sure, like when you're done with it, he might go back into the coaching room and think, that guy, I wonder, raises a good point. But to the degree that he is enamored with his own smarts, it's something that you need to get past really quickly if you want to have a long career, because you have to be confident in what you do, and not always willing to, like, that's the thing that I like most about the fourth quarter thing, or the second half thing, is, say what you will, it's a bold decision to commit to. And
he's the first coach to do it in the play-by-play in the playoffs. So yeah, it's bold.
It's bold.
One way to put it.
And had he subbed somebody out, two players out for 90 seconds each, it wouldn't have been really that much less bold. It just would have been something that didn't make headlines. I like that he is willing to take big swings that expose him. He's not stupid. He knows. He might not be thinking about it in the moment, but he certainly knows, if I don't make substitutions in the second half of game 3 and we lose, people are going to blame me for losing that game. He knows that.
Game 4.
Game 4. He's not stupid. He knows that. And he did it anyway. And I don't think he did it because he wanted the other side of that, which is, oh my God, what a brilliant guy JJ Redick is. This is the decision I'm making. I'm willing to take the heat for it, and all that's good. But as long as you are willing to accept both the questioning of stuff, because you have to be able to get along with media. It's part of it. It influences the working conditions that allow you to be successful in the NBA. When things get toxic between the coach and the coverage changes. The locker room starts to change because the players are being asked different things. It becomes more confrontational, becomes more pressure ratcheted up on everything. It's not good. And so I think that was a relative weakness of JJ last year that he'll get better at. But you have to be open to people questioning you, and really take, not necessarily us questioning him, but players, other guys on the staff, whatever it might be. You have to be open to that stuff.
Yeah, to be fair to JJ,
I'm not sure how closed off he is.
I was going to say, to be fair to JJ, I genuinely don't know how much he did or did not question either suggestions or, for lack of a better way of putting it, doubts either from his assistants or from players. Like I never heard anything about JJ being resistant to that sort of stuff. And JJ talked up all the time how he would seek out feedback from players, from his assistants, and I'm going to take him at his word for it. I mean,
for sure.
JJ talked.
I just copped to the same thing. It's hard to know exactly what it is. All I'm saying is because I think he's a good coach, and I think he had a good season. I think he's going to get better. But we're talking about what are the little signs, little things that you see that, I wonder if that, goes.
I'll give an example or something. I'll give an example. And I talked about this when it happened in real time. And I said in the moment, I didn't, because it was an exchange between me and JJ, I was not in any way put off or offended by JJ doing this. I actually thought it was funny and very JJ, but it's very much how JJ often gets around questions that he doesn't want to answer or will try to spin the question. When he made the decision to start playing D'Angelo Russell off the bench, I asked JJ if he had had a discussion with D'Lo before the season began about this just being a possibility for D'Lo, because if nothing else, it's something I know people covering the team had talked about, and it happened in Darvin Ham's final season as well. D'Lo went back and forth between starting and coming off the bench. And I asked, did you talk to D'Lo about this at all heading into the season as a possibility, just so if his role changed, he could be prepared for that? And JJ got into, and JJ does this sometimes, a semantical debate with me, saying that he doesn't consider coming off the bench a role, to which I said, well, players do. I know enough players. I've covered this league long enough. They consider that a role. D'Lo, I can guarantee, considered his role changing. Whether JJ considers it that way, and for what it's worth, I'm willing to bet as a player, he damn sure did. That's disingenuous, and that's getting into the semantics of what a role is, when JJ knows exactly what I'm asking, and he could have just said yes or no. And because that's really what I was asking. Is this something? Because JJ, the reason I asked him this is because he talked about heading into the season being very clear about roles with all his players, and which I think is great. I think that's something coaches should do. And you and I really praised JJ for doing that. And it seemed like everybody had a very clear idea of what they would be doing. And, JJ did that on a few different occasions. And again, I'm not offended by any of it. I actually think it's kind of funny. I just think it's a waste of his own time.
It's a waste of his own time. But like I said, if it goes the wrong way, it's fine when you're winning. It's fine when things are going well. As things get worse, if you have a bad season, a tough season, whatever it is, that sort of thing goes from kind of charming. And then that's kind of what I was getting at. You see those little signs of personality traits. Thibs ultimately just burns out players. He burns out organizations. Mike Malone, it's actually kind of a miracle he lasted 10 years in Denver. I mean, it probably helped that he just, they were so building up. Then they got so good.
He's a really good coach.
He's a great coach. But you can see how a Mike Malone era would just need to end. It's too much. And it gets too intense. He's too intense. And Thibs is like that. He just burns out rosters, and it's cold to do it after the Eastern Conference Finals. But the end was coming at some point, because he's not a coach who can stay in one place long enough. If you look at Spo is intense. Spo has a program, but it's like pop. We do things a certain way, but it's not prescribed in like it would be in a college program. It's we have a culture, we have a way of doing things. But I, as a coach, I will coach my roster this way one year. I'll coach it that way another year. I'll coach it. He's got a great relationship with the only front office voice that matters. Steve Kerr has always been a very open-minded coach, I think, to some degree. He's had the luxury of playing with Steph and being able to build things around Steph for this, for as long as he has. But I think, he has a style and an ethic and a front office
Okay,
that kind of backs up into what he is doing. And I think that's why I mentioned the relationship with Rob as being so important, and why those little things like language matter, because you have to be lined up and doing things in a way where your vision of basketball lines up with management's vision of basketball. And when those two things don't, even if the coach's vision isn't bad or even wrong, the coach loses his job.
Yeah. Ty Lue has always been very adaptable. And he's also one of the longest tenured coaches.
Right. Rick Carlisle is really good. Rick Carlisle is a really intense dude. So, that would be something that could make it, but successful, smart, adaptable, things like that. Let us know what you think about JJ and how he could carve out a long career. Leave a comment in the comments section of the YouTube page. Locked On Lakers on YouTube, so we can go hang out with over 35,000 subscribers. We'll see everyone tomorrow.